Hey guys, this is Jeremy, aka Spartan 127 of the 405th. I wanted to make this video because I got a couple more PMs and a question on the thread about the machine setup and everything. Thought this maybe help some people because I haven't found an all-inclusive tutorial or video on the entire process using this machine, like with the Silhouette SD that's already on the threads. But one of the questions that I got was, where can you find the Cameo software, because they went to the Tamisoft website and couldn't find it. So open up your browser and just do a Google search for Pepakura Designer. The first hit, Pepakura Designer, should be it. Whenever you pull up the website, down here below the picture, it's going to have what's new. And this is what you're looking for the Pepakura viewer for Silhouette Cameo, if that's the one that you're using. Just click on more details, and then the button to download is going to be right here. It does have the requirements. I don't think anything above Windows 7 will work with it. So if anybody has a new computer with Windows 8, I don't necessarily think that they've got it set up for that one yet. On the password deal, you have to have the password to cut out all of your pages. It's set up to where you can download it and test it before you actually try to pay for the $15 license. So, and if you already have a Pepakura Viewer 3 for Craft Robo, then your password for that one will also work for this software. So just click download. I'm not going to download because it's already on my computer, but just click download, go through your installation process like you would anything else, and then you'll have this green Pepakura box instead of the blue one for the designer. Now you do need the designer because you have to be able to save your work. You have to be able to move the parts around and everything and get it within the registration marks that are on the Pepakura viewer, so that whenever you print it out, all of your parts will be cut out. Some of the larger parts probably would have to be cut out by hand because they might be too large and you just don't want to break them up or anything like that, or de-join faces and stuff. So you can just hand cut little corners and stuff that the machine might have missed by hand. But you open up your Pepakura viewer for the Silhouette Cameo, and it has the same setup as the Pepakura Designer. It has or a regular Pepakura viewer, it has your 3D model and your 2D faces. To verify that all of your pieces are within registration marks, you can go up to File and Print Preview, and on every page it's going to have the registration mark shown and where your parts layout is. So for this particular video, I'm fixing to cut out page 41. Let's find it and make sure that everything's right. Okay, here's page 41. On the lower right hand side in your print preview, it's gonna show you your page number so you can make sure you have the right one. But here's the part that I'm cutting out. It's all within these registration marks right here. It's got 3 of them. It's got straight lines, and I might miss this corner right here. It might be a little too close. I may even miss this little corner here. I don't know, we'll find out. But your parts typically need to be within this imaginary rectangle. And yeah, the borders are a little bigger than what you normally set them up at so that we can try to save paper, but hey, that's what we got to deal with. But going into your Pepakura Designer, just move your parts around to where you think they're where they need to be, and then after you get all the parts laid out where you think they need to be, then you can go back into your Pepakura viewer and go to the print preview and check the pages that you're going to be printing to make sure that it's within the registration marks. And if you are happy with the way that all of your parts are laid out, then you print from this viewer so that the registration marks will go on the pages. Don't print from the regular designer. Just go up here, pick whichever pages it is that you're going to print, and hit OK to print out your parts. I've already printed out the part, but on your settings, under the print settings for this, make sure that you go into print configuration under settings and change the thickness of the line. By default it was 3, and it needs to be at least a 5 for the machine to be able to read it. And I think the transparency was set at about 50%, but I just put it back over to 0 and everything's worked fine. So once you have your page printed out, you can open up the controller that's also downloaded with this program here. It's going to have a little icon that looks like this one down here on the bottom of my screen. And what it does is let you use the Cameo with it, so that you don't have to go through this Silhouette software. On here, down here where it says registration marks, I think the default setting is unchecked, so check the registration marks. Go down here to distance between registration marks and plug in the width and length. You can find those numbers up here on the two-dimensional side of the viewer above your parts. It's going to have the distance between registration marks. This one says 195 wide and 259 long as far as millimeters. If you notice right here, my width is set to 196. I had some issues with alignment. It wasn't cutting on the lines and everything, so I had to change that measurement. And what I did to change it was I actually took my page after printing it out. Sorry, wrong button. After printing it out, I measured the distance for length, of course, this way. So from the outside part of this square up to this line right here, and then for width from the outside of this outside of the square on this side to this line right here, and it was 196 and not 195. The length was perfect, but the width was off. Once I changed that, all of the parts and pages that I've cut out, probably about 15 or 20 total so far, have cut directly on the line and haven't missed any of them. So just make sure that you double check your registration marks before you start printing, so you don't waste pages like I did. But going back into the controller, there's some other things that you could play around with. I always use the craft mat that came with the cutter, but you could actually set it for different things. But I use the card with craft paper backing setting. It's going to recommend the blade depth to be at 2. I'll show you here in just a second on how to adjust the blade depth. It's real easy, but I found that 2 didn't cut all the way through the 110-pound cardstock that I'm using, and I had to have mine set to 3. Alright, so of course this is the front of the machine. Control buttons for loading your paper and everything are right here. Pause button, power button. You just lift up the top. The black box here is what has the blade in it. To set your blade depth and everything, take your blade out, you turn this right here, and the whole blade assembly just comes out. It has a depth setting on it. I don't know if you can see the numbers there or not, but on the, hey, stay still. On the blade itself, it has some numbers right there on the very bottom, and that's what it has, what it means by that little thing over there on the right hand side for blade depth. It recommends 2, but like I said, I've got mine set at 3. To change it, all you have to do is, the machine has this little blade ratchet right here. You just, there's an arrow on the outside right here. I don't know if I'll be able to get that in there or not, but you just line up where the red line is on your blade, drop it in, and then you just turn it to whatever setting it is that you want it on, and then take it back out. Just verify that the red line is where you want it on your blade setting. I had a couple of questions about putting this blade in here because I didn't know if I was doing it right. So if y'all do get one of these or have one of these and haven't figured it out yet, you just drop it in and push down on it to make sure it won't go in any further. And I've been just taking this little flat tab on the front and lining it up in between the little clamp right there and closing it, and it's worked fine for me so far. So after you have that done, you're ready to go back into your controller settings.
Show the loading of the page and everything else. Just want to mention that on here it does have a blade position adjustment controller here, but it's just easier to use the buttons, I think, on the machine because you're sitting right there looking at the page and everything. But if you want to use it, it is there. So once you have everything here set up the way that you want it, you're going to load your page. To load the page, of course, you need to have your page that you're going to be cutting out and your mat. It comes in the package and everything with this cover on it. So just take that out, and it's a sticky mat. What you want to do is load your page with the square going towards the machine in the upper right corner. Just try to line it up as straight as you can on your page using the grid that's on there. I found that if it's not perfect, it still cuts it out just fine. So just make sure that it's stuck on there. Open up your machine, and then what you want to do is put it in. There are a couple of lines right over here. There's a small line and then a large line right here. I've just found that if I line that plastic thing up with that and then press the enter button on the right side over there, that'll pull the sheet in just fine with no problems, and it won't get caught up on anything. Once you have it loaded in there, I apologize, I'm going to have to take the camera off the tripod here. Once you have the camera, once you have it loaded up, your blade is going to move all the way to the right. To get your registration marks set up right, what I found is this black line right here is where you want your square sitting. So you use the page buttons, press down, it feeds the page in further. Right about there is where we want to put our square, and then we want to use the left and right arrows on the machine to move the blade over. And what we're looking for is to have that square that was on there right underneath our cutting blade. I think I got it pretty much there. So once you get that lined up, we go back into the Pepakura viewer. Now that we have our page loaded with the blade set up over there on top of that square, what we're going to do is go down here to the registration mark reading button, hit registration mark reading, and then it's going to say please use the position keys to move the pin tip, which is our blade, within the readable range, the green section of the drawing. And on here the green section is going to be the square. That's why we just did what we did. Just saves a little bit of time instead of waiting for the machine to tell us to do it. After that, we hit OK. And then the machine is going to read the registration marks. After it reads the registration marks, the page is just going to sit there in the printer, and it's going to wait for you to send the cut command from your computer. So go through the cutting setup real quick. After you have set up your registration marks and read the page and everything, what you need to do is go back into your viewer, hit File, go down to Cut Developments, and then it's going to bring up this menu here where you say what page it is that you're cutting. So I'm cutting page 41, so hit page 41. Up underneath the cut page number, there's a Details tab. The Details tab is for setting up your scoring and everything. As you can see, all three of these are checked. Cut lines, mountain folds, valley folds, but none of them have cut for me yet. If you click this line right here, all of your fold lines are going to be cut clean off, so I don't suggest using that one. But after you have that set up, click OK. You make sure you have the right page and everything, click OK again.
On here for your printer, sometimes it defaults back to your regular printer. Just make sure in the drop down menu here that you have Silhouette Cameo selected. Under properties, I'm going to show you this too. It has your basic setup for letter and everything. And under cut line settings, you can actually add colors and everything for your score lines. But no matter what I've done there, it hasn't worked for me. So I've done everything that Tamasoft has shown and haven't been able to get it to cut. I've read some other threads, forums on like RPF and some other stuff, and haven't been able to find out how to get it to do it exactly, but I'll just keep cutting them out by hand. There have been some reports that they rip off tabs and like smaller parts and stuff like that, so I'll just keep cutting it by hand as far as the scoring. Alright, so after you have everything set up the way that you want it and you have selected your page and everything, click OK. It's going to say ready to cut, and then click OK to start cutting. What it's going to do is just like in the other video, it's going to read the registration marks a couple more times just to make sure that it's set right, and then it'll go right into cutting everything. And it's saying it's done, so what we'll do is we hit the enter key to get the part out, let it unload the mat, and you just peel off, just peel off your paper backing, and then you're left with your part on here. And I don't know if you can see it other than me messing up that piece right there, which can be fixed. It cut everything out just like it was supposed to. So guys, I hope this makes sense, and I hope it helps somebody. At least it'll all be in one place now, I guess. So if you have any questions, just send me a PM or post a question in the thread if y'all are going to decide to use this or something, or if you've already got one and need some help with it, maybe I can help you set it up.